Hello, I'm Evan, and welcome back. Today we're going to have our final lesson of our region, and it's going to talk a little bit more about our economy from a global perspective. And entrepreneurs that are even operating here in Wichita, many of them are receiving elements or components of the goods that they're creating from other countries. And so this is something that's more and more common. And the things that you're using each day probably have some components of something made internationally. And so when we think about this whole process, we're thinking about manufacturing. So now we're talking about the place in which the product, the end product is made. And so, for example, we talked about this cell phone. And the cell phone can be a wonderful tool, and I need it to do business and to communicate. But this product, while I buy it here at a store in Wichita, many of the components are made in other places. Some of those components might be from Japan, other components might be from China, wherever they happen to be made from. And then they're all put together into this one unit that I buy from someplace here in Wichita. So when we think about that manufacturing process, it's really bringing in a whole bunch of different resources. So different goods that are, different elements that's used to make this product or service. This is important because these are made by other companies, suppliers. We have many, many companies here in Wichita that are working specifically with the aerospace industry. Some of your parents or aunts and uncles might be working for some of those machining companies or different companies. There are literally hundreds and hundreds that make parts for Textron and for Spirit. So these suppliers are important because they're making small components. They're specializing, maybe they're making a spring, a specialized spring that's used for the doors of a 737. One of my friends works in one of those companies, and all day long, all they make are springs. And that's what a supplier does. So that one supplier is really important because when it's time to finish the airplane, we need that spring for the door. And they're a part of something called a supply chain, because the airplane clearly isn't complete just because that spring is there. We need literally thousands of parts to come in, and then they're all assembled to make an airplane. That's probably one of the most complex examples that we could use. But there are many others, much simpler things. But companies are very reliant upon the supply chain working as it is supposed to. Now, I'd love to tell you that that supply chain always works perfectly. But we can maybe, an example here at Meritrust is a couple of years ago, we were ready for a major upgrade of our systems. And one of the things that happened was in Japan, they had a tsunami. And it wiped out the plant that was making some of the technical systems that we needed. They had committed to providing them at a certain time, but they couldn't meet that. But because of that event that happened clear across the world, we weren't able to meet a deadline that we had set up. And that's just a simple example, but it's very real and it happens over and over again. So one of the things that a business needs to determine is, what is your interdependence? What is the reliance that I have on a company? Are there other places that I can get it? Perhaps in the previous lesson, you played the hot dog game. And in that lesson, one of the examples that was given was the provider of your hot dogs all of a sudden didn't have hot dogs to buy. Well, what would make you available to keep doing business is you could buy your hot dogs from another place. And that's a good solution to the problem. All of these things that we've talked about come together to create what's called an economy. And so here in Wichita, if you think of the thousands of businesses that we have, restaurants, service places, car dealerships, aerospace companies, education. That's a critical piece of our economy. This whole process that Wichita has put together to have public schools allows your classroom to exist. And we bring together the resources needed so that you can have an effective day of learning in the class. Or maybe even doing this remotely for some of you in today's world. So all of these things are coming together to make you a little more aware of what business is. And I hope this study that we've had here at Junior Achievement has helped you. I appreciate the time that you've given, and I hope that you've learned. And it's been a joy to spend time with you, and we look forward to you continuing to learn and getting a little bit better every day that you come to class and you pay attention to your teacher and you improve over wherever you are. So thank you again. On behalf of Junior Achievement and Meritrust, we are grateful for this opportunity and have a wonderful day.